It took me. Hey, good afternoon, Fargo. Welcome to Talk of the Town with Jon Adams. As you can see, I'm alone in studio, so it's going to be a very good hour. I've got a lot of stuff I want to cover. Starting off with, I want to congratulate Lynn Brandenberger and myself. We took down a couple solid, beyond solid players on Sunday. We won the Maple River League Championship. And so I'm off the schneid, as it were, back on top as a champion. For those of you that know me, I have two great loves. Well, more than two, but two passions, and that's Call of Duty and golf. So,
very well balanced.
Yeah. Well, now that the Vikings are back in play, you know, it's funny, but when it comes to weddings, we make it perfectly clear in the summer it's probably not a good idea to schedule a wedding, James, because there might be a golf outing that I have to attend. So much so that my daughter, Christian's wife, they scheduled their wedding on Friday. I mean, I'm not saying they did it because I might have a golf outing, but I thought it was pretty awesome that they would even go that far. So, by the way, it's their 1-year anniversary. We were all up in Duluth at the Blues Festival. And if you've never been to Blues Fest, other than right now, it's way too expensive. It's way too expensive. You would not believe what they're charging for food. The number of vendors are down. Tickets are $75 day of. You know, it's starting to price themselves out of the market, and I don't get how they're going to fix it, but they should. And, you know, it used to be the acts would play in the local bars. They're not even doing that now. Knowing the guys at Roscoe's Pioneer Bar, you know, Roscoe, he's a fixture up there, and they used to have bands come in. It's really changed, but still, overall, it's a great family event, and for the first time in 31 years, my family was allowed to attend, because it used to be just a guy's weekend. And with time comes change. So my lovely wife got to go, and she probably had the best time of anybody, enjoyed the music, had her favorite bands. And of course, that's when our family gets together and we get to see each other. And so that was a great weekend, followed up with a victory. And now to the business at hand. So while I was gone, the city commission voted on a preliminary budget for 2025. And I believe it was rolled out on Monday. And so I hadn't had a chance to look at it, nor had I really planned on commenting on it, because I thought, hey, you know what? They didn't cut the engagement center. That's still in there, which I think we need. I think the location is terrible, but I think the engagement center, it meets the needs of a lot of people. Okay? The everyday person. You know, it's not just homeless people that are using that facility. There are a lot of working people that use that facility too, and I think it's very cavalier of people to think that should just go away. You know, what are we saying to people that really need help? You know, and I've said it before in the Bible, it says, what you do to the least of these, you do to me. And those two things, that and DEI, remained in the budget for 2025. And, you know, we always look at things in terms of our own best interests. You know, what we think is best for us. So when I look at what the city does, I look at how it's going to impact young people. That's my very first thought is, what are we doing to take care of young people in our city so that we retain them? We're getting older. And if our young people don't feel like Fargo cares about them or is a viable option or is in their best interest, they're going to leave. And that's how cities fall on hard times, is that the area doesn't get replenished. That's point one, is that I was very happy with the way the budget played out. But as it would have it, all good things must come to an end. Evidently, there was a special committee meeting called yesterday by Michelle Turnberg, which I find incredible because she's been in office for less than 6 weeks, and she's already jumped in with both feet. It's really a difference between other commissioners who've been there for 3 years and haven't called a special session that I know of. But here she's taking one of the most important jobs that the city commission has and says, we need to do a deep dive on the budget. A newly minted commissioner is saying, we need to take a deep dive on the budget. Now, she had approved the first one just the day before, but in 24 hours, she switched how she felt about it. And so I'll tell you the significance of the switch. As you guys know or may not know, we have mills. And the way that I listened to the meeting and understand it was the airport was reduced to 1 mill, okay? And that was the vote. That's what they were going to do. Now, my understanding is that initially it was a 2 mill deal going forward, and deals were made and this and that, but we settled on 1 mill, okay, and that was fine. But now yesterday at the meeting, it's the mill cap is going to be 57, which means 55 for the city, and instead of 1 mill, we're now giving 2 mill to the airport authority. Now that changes what happened in the public eye. And this is the significance of me explaining all this. Because when you go to bed on Monday and you understand that we're only giving 1 mill to the airport authority, and then you wake up on Wednesday and find out that we've changed that to 2 mills, you have to ask, well, where are we going to make up the difference? Okay? And the mayor's position is that we can bring the mills down to the COLA, which is the cost of living for the employees in the city of Fargo, down to 3.5. Okay? So that's how we stay, that's where we would be if we do what we're doing. And so it's not official to my understanding, but it's in the works to change what had already been approved. And I have a problem with that. I have a problem that we're saying one thing and we're doing another out of the public eye, okay? And when we talk about transparency within local government, this is the exact thing that I'm talking about. And I've tried to get a hold of Dave Pepcorn and get him on the show because he's pushing the airport authority deal really hard, and I have questions about why. Why are we pushing so hard? And let's not forget the airport authority has enough money to do what they need to do right now. Now, my position is for this next year, we don't give them 2 mills, we give them 1 mill, and they use the excess in their budget to make up the difference. Because we need a balanced budget. And so with the changes that we've made now, as of yesterday, I believe there's either $600,000 or $800,000 that we have to account for to have a balanced budget. Now, the mayor, he did a pretty good job because before you can approve a budget, it must be balanced, okay? So him and the finance committee and the city administrators worked to give us that in the interim before the vote actually comes in September. So there's a couple questions that you have to ask yourself, and I'm going to leave it at that because there are other things that are far more fantastic as far as I'm concerned. First, why is there such a need for us to give this money to the airport authority who is flush right now? And I've heard city commissioners say, well, that was the deal that we made. Well, we make a deal with our city workers. You know, they've had a hold on their COLA for the past 3 years, if I understand it correct, at 3.5. At when are we going to take care of these city employees? Secondly, with the way things are done now, some of these city employees, and I hear it over and over, Team Fargo and holding to the mission and all this, but on its face, it looks to me like the very people that you're saying you're trying to protect now are going to be affected by this latest deal. So that means with the way it is yesterday, there are going to be some people in city government that are going to lose their job. And if certain commissioners had their way, DEI would go away, obviously. And the I forget the name of it. Help me out there. I forget the name. Oh man, I can't remember the name. But there are two deals that they think if we cut these programs in government, then everything will be okay. The problem is when you cut these programs out, you're saying to a certain segment, the very segment, by the way, that in June and May, you canvassed and said, we want your vote. Okay? We want you to be a part of the process. Vote for us. We're going to look out in your best interests. And so if I'm one of the groups that are going to be affected, I'm going to have a lot to say about that. And so all I know is our city commission, God bless them, they're doing what they think they should do. I'm not in agreement with all of it. So I'm interested to hear what you have to say, because the other part of this is, remember, these mills are your taxes. And now we're giving taxes to entities that are flush already. So Big Game James says, we're already up against a break. I'm off and running. This is Jon Adams with Talk of the Town. If you want to call in, the phone number is 701-293-9000. Welcome back to Talk of the Town with Jon Adams. It's a rainy day, folks, out, and I can tell you my arthritis is flaring up bad. It is what it is, though. We still got to move and shake, right? So just to continue on and end this discussion on the city commission. So I'm disturbed in the fact that it seems to me that we're saying one thing in public and we're doing another thing behind closed doors, And so I've asked a number of commissioners to be on my show, and for whatever reason they haven't gotten back to me, and I don't understand it because you're a public figure, and as a public figure and a civil servant, shouldn't you be accessible for the news media? I guess I'm the news media. Would I be the news media, James? I don't know. But I know this.
I would say so. You could be considered that.
Wow.
What?
I don't feel any more important, but that's awesome. As much as I rail against the news media. But I find it interesting that we have a moving ball when it comes to the communications department in the city of Fargo. And I mean it like this. When I wanted Dr. Hogan on the show, the director of DEI, he had to jump through a number of hoops just to get permission. And maybe it's different from directors to commissioners, but there was a lot of rigmarole that had to happen to get him on my show, and there was a way that it had to happen. Okay? Well, it seems that there's a double standard there. And so, I've asked the mayor on, the police chief on, and none of them have returned my request or even talked to me. There's a lot of lip service over there. I'd love to, but I have yet to have them on. But I think let's have these people on. Let them talk about their plan. Now, I got to give John Strand a little credit because the meeting that I saw, the special thing that was called by Michelle Turnberg, he voted against it. Again, we have to pay attention. We have to pay attention because just like parking ramps to the tune of $90 to $100 million, our tax money is being spent in a way that to me seems not quite up to par. And so in the coming weeks, I'm going to talk about, I have a friend who's an accountant, and I've asked him to take a look at the city budget. And if he were an accountant, what would he do? And he's got his own business, and it's just for my own amusement, just to see where he would make cuts. Because let's face it, when you start cutting a budget in local government, you're going to affect some people's jobs. And one of the things I did is I went through and I looked at the top 5 departments in government. And director salaries and what their budgets were. And I started thinking about where would I cut. And so at the top of the list, we have the city administrator's office with salaries in excess of $400,000 for a 3-person office. And I thought, there's got to be some bright student that could do the job of an assistant administrator for half the price. You could groom them. Mike Redlinger, he's fantastic at what he does. By all accounts, you look at the city, that guy's got a lot on his plate. But I'm just wondering, could we hire somebody? And I've heard it said, well, we need people with experience in there. Well, if we have 2 city commissioners that have little to no experience, why couldn't we have a city administrator that is groomed to take over that position or to learn that position or grow in that position? So that right there, I thought, we could reduce that office by $100,000 right there. The communications department, I went through and I looked at what the communications department does, and if there was any place where I thought, I don't get the spending patterns. I don't understand how we're spending that much and why that's such a large piece. But again, I don't have access to all the information, but if anybody wants to call in and explain why it's so much, feel free to do so. I don't claim to know everything, but I know what I read. So do we need a balanced budget? Absolutely. Do we need to stop spending frivolously as the city? Absolutely. I mean, the parking ramp, some of the things that are put forth, a lot of them aren't money makers. Okay, part of the job of the city commission is to figure out how we can fill the coffers without constantly raising taxes. I don't see much in the way of creativity coming out of the city commission. We need to put our thinking caps on, ladies and gentlemen, and move maybe in a new direction. John Strand said he had two pages of notes of where he thought they might be able to work in the budget. Now, here's my thing. In the moving around of all the money and the cuts and all of this, the one thing that was impressed upon me is that they want to get the COLA back up to 4.5 or maybe even 5. That's the cost of living increase, I believe, for the city employees, which to me makes sense. And I noticed that there was a pay raise, and I don't know if it's a pay raise, maybe it's part of the COLA, but some of our elected leaders, we're a little top heavy, if I could use that word. But anyway, enough about the city commission. I hadn't planned on talking about that at all, but I think it's something that we need to keep our eye on as citizens, and we need to have accountability. So last week, I talked about a new group, a new mission that I'm on, and that's the education and the helping our communities understand the process of how to move within the city and get the things that we need for our communities, for our kids. You know, I think our school system, we've got to do something, because we're missing the boat on a lot of things. The teachers can't teach in any meaningful way because they're too busy being police officers in the classroom. The way that we deal with people that don't want to learn in our schools is abysmal. And time we see people go to the school boards in West Fargo and in the city of Fargo, and the issues fall on deaf ears. We have a teacher shortage now because nobody wants to go in this classroom the way it's set up, where the teachers have no control over the classroom. Their hands are tied when it comes to the people that don't want to learn within their classrooms. So me and a couple other leaders, and I don't purport myself as a city leader or speak for the black community. I'm just a guy who looks at something and says, what can we do to be better as citizens in the city of Fargo? And so for me, I like working with kids, so I'm working with Charles Hansa and some other leaders, minority leaders in the community, first to establish a coalition that will meet the needs of people in our communities. And at the top of the list is we're going to develop a platform that helps meet the needs of the youth in our society, in Fargo at large, so that they understand how to move and how to move positive within our community. I think that we lack a lot of resources that cater to our children. Now, we're building a big, beautiful sports complex down south, but I've said it before, I just wonder how many people that really need it are going to have access. James says we're already up against the break. When I come back, we're going to talk more about the coalition as well as what we see as the platform to help people of color and immigrant communities move seamlessly in the city of Fargo. This is Jon Adams for Talk of the Town. If you want to call in, the phone number is 701-293-9000. Welcome back. Welcome back to Talk of the Town. This is Jon Adams. I've been all around the map today. We've talked so far about the Bayfront Blues Festival. We talked about our stunning victory on Sunday to win the league championship, on Monday, league championship. We've been talking about the revision made to the budget in a special commission meeting yesterday called by Michelle Turnberg, a freshman commissioner. She was okay with the vote, but then she said after talking to airport authorities, she decided to change her vote. And it has some pretty real significance, both to the COLA, which is the cost of living for city employees, as well as the engagement center and possibly DEI. It seems to me that those are the two areas that are talked about the most in the city of Fargo as to where we could cut so that we're in line and we have a balanced budget. My thinking is that we're looking at an entity like the airport authority who's got a I think it's a $120 million project, and we're going to give them the mills, and I do have to say in all transparency that the mills were always 2 mills for the airport authority, and the mayor reduced it to 1. That's how we got to this. But I find it interesting that the mayor put the proposal before city commissioners, and they voted in favor of the 1 mill. And in a meeting held yesterday, all of that changed, and it went back to 2 mills. So, it's something that we have to take a look at. Everybody's of an opinion. Mine is you do what's in the interest of the people, okay? And so there are a number of things that have happened in the past 2 years that it has me question who are we serving when we put the interest of someone like the airport authority over regular citizens, as well as our citizens in government. Along those lines, we hired people last year, and they have a certain expectation when they get hired. And I'm sure the COLA and getting raises and things like that, it's a part of it. So it's not an easy job. I'm certainly not downing the commission, but it's like, hey, listen, these are things that we have to look long and hard at. And my big question is, where are we spending? I mean, remember last year we had a budget deficit, and somehow we worked it out. But now the budget's increased for this year. It's like if a business is not making money last year, but then they're projecting that they're going to spend more money this year. John Strad said we had to tighten up. We need to tighten. And I imagine that means tighten the purse strings to get even back to level. And it's not an easy job, but I think that there's a better way to do it. And I'm not going to say that we have special interests in this town, but we do. And I think right now we're serving the special interests and not the citizens, but that's one man's opinion on the radio. So the second thing I started talking about was the fact that as a minority in this community, I recognize a need, and that is getting our youth what they need so that they can be productive within the community. And I talk to a lot of people every week. I'm on the board of Dynasty, so I meet people that ask questions. They know I'm on the radio, and they know that I'm involved behind the scenes trying to understand what we do as a government, try to get answers so that they understand. And the big thing I see is that a lot of our government entities are not paying attention to what the citizens have to say. And no more is that more evident than at the school level. The issues that we face, well, part of it is we have to take accountable for our communities. And so I'm getting together with men in the community, and we're going to start a mentor program. We're going to start a mentor program that can go in the high schools and mentor our community, meaning the minority and immigrant community, as to how to move seamlessly so that their kids first get the education that they should have. We can't sit back and think that it's just going to happen. We know that that's not the case with education. And it's not for lack of trying with a lot of the teachers. I refuse to put what's happening in our schools on the teachers. But the state legislature, you look at work-based learning. You look at the programs that we're trying to set forth and how it's like pulling teeth to get the legislators to see that we need to shore up our work base. We need to shore up the trades. We need to give these kids options that make sense. We've got kids coming out of high school that want to go to college that aren't prepared. Now, Donald Trump is talking about overhauling the education system and allowing the states to determine how education is handled. But I would submit that if you look at the way education is handled in the state of North Dakota, there's a reason that my sons ended up at Oak Grove. Okay, and it had nothing to do with the legacy of our family being alumni there. It had everything to do with giving them the best possible education. Well, shouldn't that take place in our public schools? And you talk to any parent who has a student, a lot of people, Capstone, shout out to Brady Nash and the Capstone group, the Capstone school is looking to address that. So with our group, we're looking to, first of all, let's mentor these young people. Let's help them to understand that you can talk about it, you can ask for it, but there's a way to talk and there's a way to ask for it. There's a way to move when you're in school and you see something that doesn't look right. You have to talk about how do you get people to listen? How do parents get the administration and the school board and legislators, how do we get them to understand what we're saying? You know, we have a cultural divide in our schools where culturally there isn't a great understanding of the needs of the minority and immigrant community. And that starts at the top. And it starts at the top because you have to look at what type of person is coming into your schools. So I'll use the coaching example. Anybody who's a good coach knows that you can't coach every kid the same way. If you do, it's a recipe for disaster. Well, if you look at our schools, teachers aren't allowed to look at these kids individually and meet their needs as individuals. It's a cookie-cutter system that lends itself to a certain percentage of our kids being left behind and not getting the education that we need. Well, part of it is our communities. If we don't understand that there are mechanisms by which to get our kids the proper education, and we're not going in and we're not sitting in on these school board meetings and demanding accountability, then we get what we get. And so this group that we're putting forth is looking to address our communities. First, starting with young people, making sure that they see where the opportunities are, where the pitfalls lie. And the second part of the group is to understand the role of law enforcement in our community. And I've said it before. I've lived other places and I've seen what a terrible law enforcement agency looks like. Minneapolis, the Minnesota Highway Patrol. We know what bad law enforcement looks like, and for the most part, I think that we do a pretty good job. There are people that would disagree with me. We do have our issues, no doubt, but it could definitely be a lot worse. So these are the things, and the reason that we're putting this group together is we need to have self-determination. We need to clean up our neighborhoods. We need to make sure that we're moving as a group, okay? And I can tell you with the number of minorities that are in this community, one of the things we're going to talk about is the importance of getting out to vote for your interest. Big Game James says we're up against the break. When I come back, we're going to talk more about voting in your best interest and paying attention to the powers that be. This is Jon Adams for Talk of the Town. If you want to call in, the phone number is 701-293-9000. Welcome back to the final segment of Talk of the Town with Jon Adams. We have been all around the map and in between. And so, enough of this. I don't want to call it negativity, but these are things that we need to talk about, folks. We need to address it. We need to hit these things head on. And as I'm fond of saying, it's about the dialogue. But dialogue without action is just talk. And I can tell you on the national stage, it's all dialogue. It's all talk. I hear Trump is rolling out his platform today. I'm anxious to see that, but let's not forget that he already rolled out Agenda 27 and Project 2025, which he's trying to distance himself from. But if you look at the two, they're intertwined pretty heavy, but that's a conversation for another day. The one thing I want to talk about is let's not skip over the fact that we just came off, a big worldwide event in the Olympics. And I can tell you that we are amazing people as Americans, right? We'll beat each other up and we'll hammer each other in social media and all of that. But when it comes to being united around the Olympics, I mean, I'm watching breakdancing, for goodness sakes. You look at the medal count. It's amazing what unites us. And I can tell you that sitting in a bar watching soccer or three-person volleyball and everybody cheering for the U.S. and watching the track teams do what they do, and let's not forget the women's gymnastics team, all of those things, there's so many things that give you a good feeling about being American, and there's nothing more American than trouncing people in the world of athletics on a world stage, and so hats off to the Olympic team and everybody that participated. I'm fascinated how we can all rally around things like that, but then when it comes to what's best for the nation, meaning ourselves, we go astray. And I don't have the answer. I mean, I have plenty of answers, but most of my answers are pretty radical, and so it's best left in my head, because if I start ranting and rolling, some people probably be in favor of my immigration policy. Like I said, if it's me, I'm shutting down the border for 2 years. I'm finding any business that's hiring illegals, I'm finding them $1,000 a day for every illegal that they hire, that they have on staff. If you did those two things, how long do you think it would take for our immigration situation to be under control? Because if we're not employing them, they're not working. And if they're not working, we'll find out pretty quick who they are. But that's just the Jon Adams platform, and I'm nowhere near important enough to even have a say in that. So one thing I did want to touch on is that football's back, ladies and gentlemen. And as you know, I am a diehard Viking fan, and I loved what I saw. And unfortunately now J.J. McCarthy has a meniscus tear. We don't know how bad that is, but I like the way he slinged the ball around the field. And I like the fact, if you're a Viking fan, for the first time, we're actually going to develop a quarterback, and we're actually going to have hope. And Sam Darnold didn't look too bad. As for the rest of those guys, Mr. Hall, he can go away anytime. Nick Mullins, he's a gunslinger. But, overall, I thought the concepts that the Vikings employed, both offensive and defensively, I liked the fact that the defense was hitting and that they missed a couple tackles, but you saw that a lot of those rookies, a lot of those undrafted free agents, when they were on the field, they were pretty cohesive. And understanding football, I'm excited about it. Now, we know that we're in the toughest division in the league, but I don't think that Detroit is quite there yet. I mean, they're good. Caleb Williams, I've said before, I think he's not going to be as good as people think, but that's just one man's opinion. So hats off to the Vikings. I hope that J.J. McCarthy is able to come back in a couple months. I'm not really excited if he does, because I don't want people to feel like he should be thrown into the mix. I think too often these kids are rushed into service and then they float around for a few years as journeymen and they don't get a solid shot because it's difficult to play in the NFL. It's difficult to learn what you need to know. So with that, I'm looking forward. I'm sure I'm going to get to my couple Vikings games and a few Gophers games. It's going to be interesting, James. Now we've got the 4 out of the Pac-10 joining the Big Ten, and USC plays Minnesota, I believe, on October the 5th. That's one of the games that I want to go see because if it's a cold October, we'll see how they're going to be able to handle it.
They should just be thankful that they're not coming in November.
Yeah. Well,
USC, UCLA, they don't I suppose playing with Oregon and Washington, they know a little bit, but it's a little different kind of cold when you come up here to Minnesota and Wisconsin. Even Iowa is a different kind of cold in the fact that it's warmer than when you get Minneapolis and Madison and those places.
Yep, and when it has that little bit of chill and it's damp out and you can't get warm no matter what, and the field is as hard as concrete, it's kind of tough. It's kind of tough to tackle a guy or to run through a guy when you're cold and your pads are cracking and your helmet feels like it's made of glass. So I'm excited for the Big Ten. I'm a little afraid of Nebraska. They're the dark horse in this thing because Matt Rule, he's going to get them rolling early.
It's all a matter of the buy-in from those guys because Rule, he did an incredible job before he left college the first time. You could tell he's a college coach, not an NFL guy. And
right.
I mean, they bought in towards the end of last year. I mean, the reason that the Gophers beat them in that opener was because of that incredible toe tap catch with, 2 minutes to go in the game. I mean, that was a dogfight for 60 minutes.
Yes, we were actually at that game, and to see that thing play out, it was holy cow.
I was on my way home from Wayne, Nebraska. We were doing Dragon football that evening, and so I heard it on the radio call, and I didn't know what was going on. All I know it was 10:30 at night. The sun had gone down, and I was in a panic trying to surf social media after we pulled over to the side of the road because I had heard about this incredible play.
Yeah, it was something else. And to P.J. Fleck, this Brosmer that they brought in, he's a gunslinger. He's got an arm to him.
Mm-hmm.
The question is going to be within the system. Everybody complains that P.J. Fleck's system is so vanilla. But if you're a football aficionado, it's brilliant in that every play looks like every other play. And And that
controlling the tempo.
Exactly. That can be difficult. And they've always had the horses up front. They got that stud running back. They've always had a good running back. I'm amazed how
Darius
PJ
Taylor is, and he was a diamond in the rough that they found out of Detroit, and he blossomed last year because they needed him to.
Right.
And I'm excited to see what he does in his sophomore campaign.
Right. And then, they always have stud linemen. The defense, for a long time, the defense has been a thorn in the side of P.J. Fleck or any Gopher team. And PJ has settled into finding 3 or 4 guys that understand and can play at a high level. You look at, he didn't find Winfield, but I think is it Cashman that's now playing for the
Blake
Vikings?
Cashman, yep. Yeah, he was
a former Gopher. He's a Chad Greenway type kid.
Oh, yeah.
And people got to be excited. I'm excited. I'm flip-flopping now because I didn't have my Adderall. But I'm flip-flopping because the Vikings linebacker core is going to be vicious. And if the front line can give them space to operate, I think we're going to be solid.
They need to rely on them a little bit more, especially with that thin secondary.
Right. Ugh, man. Well, this has been Talk of the Town with Jon Adams. We got about 30 seconds left. So I want to say that thanks for tuning in. It's been a great week, and I hope everybody has a wonderful week. And remember, you got to be a part of the solution, not part of the problem in our community, and we have to pay attention in our community. This has been Jon Adams for Talk of the Town, and as always, stay black.